Let's dive into this. Tennessee has at least three big games, depending on how you want to determine it. I guess you could throw in Oklahoma, given the tie with Heupel and the fact that Oklahoma is going to want revenge, and I get all that. But basically, even though there's not an East anymore, and the rivalry with Alabama is not the same probably as it used to be with the constant expansion and the playoffs and on and on. But the three big games is still Florida, Georgia, Alabama, right?
Yeah, 1,000%. Three big games: Florida, Georgia, Alabama.
So if they win all three games, it's a successful season, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. If they win two games, is it a successful season?
Yes, 100%.
I agree. One game, successful season.
Provided they don't lose anywhere else, yes, because I think that will be enough to get them to the college football playoff, which is the goal.
I agree. They would have to not drop another game. They would have to make the college football playoff. At the end of the day, that's really what it's all about, isn't it? Four Downs is now brought to you by Ted Russell.
Come on, guys, it's game time.
Four Downs. Can you count? Four downs. 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, let's dive into it, Caleb, as our guy Coop will set us up, as Coop will take us through four downs right now. I think, no, maybe not. Coop will tell us that it's Four Downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Let's start with first down, Caleb. Tennessee versus Georgia. What are the chances that Tennessee, and by the way, if you want to get on the message board, we'll make it a poll question as well. Would one win, two wins, or three wins signify a successful season? I'll let you phrase it how you want to, but what are the opportunities that what's the opportunity that Tennessee has to beat Georgia this season? I don't think Georgia is unbeatable in any shape, form, or fashion this year. I think the scariest team in the SEC is Texas, and then there's a significant fall off.
Yes. So I would say, are you ready for my hot take?
I'm ready.
Tennessee, and I'm dead serious about this, of those three circled marquee games, their best chance at a win is Georgia.
Wow.
Yeah, their best chance at a win is Georgia. You're getting Georgia at home in September. Georgia lost their quarterback in Gunnar Stockton. They actually, in Carson Beck. So they have to break in a new quarterback in Gunnar Stockton. We watched him play last year. At the end of the year, he wasn't that good. They have, I still say, a dodo for an offensive coordinator. Dodo Bobo. Yes. Even though they didn't lose a lot to the transfer portal, I think they lost a lot in general. So they still have a lot of chemistry issues and talent to replace. They're going to be having growing pains in September, and they're coming to Knoxville. I think when you take all that into account, it is right for Tennessee to be upset Georgia. Georgia's the better team, but it is right for Georgia to make a couple mistakes here or there for Tennessee to win the game, right? And I think that the game being in Neyland, being in September when Georgia hasn't really come together from a talent perspective, Josh Heupel being a better play caller than Mike Bobo. I think one of the underrated parts about college football, Dave, is I think early in the year, coaching has a much bigger impact on games than talent. Talent starts to win out later in the year, but play calling has a much bigger impact early in the year. Is that fair to say? Than later in the year. That's one of the biggest Florida always beat Tennessee in September.
Yeah, my biggest issue though is you've got an offense that's still going to be gelling in September. That's why I can't go Georgia with you.
You think Georgia's offense will be gelling in September?
No, I think Tennessee's offense has to gel in September.
Okay, I could see that, but I think that Tennessee could. But both will be going through growing pains. Which, by the way, when both offenses are going through growing pains, it's anyone's game, and this game's at Neyland. And Josh Heupel, the play caller, has the advantage. And again, play calling and game planning is a much bigger deal in September than it is in December or November. It is. And like I said, that's why Steve Spurrier always beat Tennessee when they played in September, because he was just a way better play caller than anybody else on Tennessee staff. But the one time they played in December, Tennessee won.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thank you, Coop. All right. I was wondering where he was.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
It is second down. All right. So let me turn to Alabama. Alabama's going to be a pretty good football team. The biggest question about Alabama is, of course, the situation. However, I've seen this before with coaches. They bide their time with a guy they're not crazy about and develop a guy kind of in the shadows in the background. And I think that's what's happened with Ty Simpson. I think last year they did the best they could with the quarterback situation they had and were planning for this year. I think that's what Kalen DeBoer was doing. And I think from what I've heard from my sources in Tuscaloosa, this quarterback situation is not a concern whatsoever to the Alabama Crimson Tide coaching staff. So I don't know how that sits upon you, but that's what I have been told by good sources.
That's what I've heard too. I think they're being cagey. Guys, the only reason they didn't go with Ty Simpson last year, and I mean the only reason, was Kalen DeBoer was in his first year at Alabama. He was taking over for the greatest coach of all time. It was going to be very hard for him to command the respect of the team, and the team loved Jalen Milroe. So he decided, I'm going to go with Jalen Milroe this year just to keep the team together and not lose the team, basically, was what he did. Jalen Milroe was a horrible fit for Kalen DeBoer's system. A horrible fit. Great fit for somebody like, Nick Saban, who could adjust on the fly to run first read and run quarterback. He did it with Jalen Hurts. Nick Saban has experience with the quarterbacks like Jalen Milroe. Does not have experience. I mean, Kalen DeBoer's type of quarterbacks, he needs them to be able to. Kalen DeBoer's system requires quarterbacks to be able to survey the whole field. It involves a lot of Mike Leach's concepts. Funny enough, just not as gimmicky. When you take that into account, that's something Jalen Milroe couldn't do. That's something Ty Simpson can do. And I think a lot of the players they lost, by the way, was just trimming the dead wood.
It's a third down. Coop.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Hey, you said earlier you thought Tennessee had the best opportunity to beat Georgia. I think Tennessee's best opportunity is to beat Florida because of the three teams, Georgia, Alabama, and Florida. I think Florida has the least amount of talent, which is saying a lot, because you should never have the least amount of talent when you talk about a Florida school. I also think Tennessee has an advantage in terms of coaching over Billy Napier. So let me get your thoughts on Florida. It's Four Downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford and Ted Russell Lincoln. They're on Parkside Drive and Kingston Pike. Caleb's thoughts. Got to check out the super dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Employee pricing is here. You pay what we pay on all new Ford models. Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Thoughts on the Gators?
Okay. By the way, before we get to the Gators, I want to point out Alabama to me is their most certain loss. I think Georgia is their best chance at a win. Alabama is their worst chance at a win. They have a less likely chance of beating Alabama than anybody else on the schedule.
Okay.
Florida is a gigantic toss-up. Tennessee's a better team than Florida. Tennessee has a better coach than Florida. Tennessee's playing at Florida, and Florida has a psychological edge over Tennessee. It's not just that Tennessee hasn't beaten Florida in the swamp in 22 years. It's not just it's that Josh Heupel himself has a really bad track record in road games right now, and he's got something to prove on that. Just last year alone, Josh Heupel went against the spread. I believe he lost his last 6 games. He was 0-6 in his final 6 games on the road last year against the spread. He is a bad road coach. And Tennessee's already got struggles against Florida that psychologically impact them. And this Florida team came on strong last year. They could be still going strong this year. Now, I mean, let's not forget, Dave, this Tennessee team needed overtime to beat Florida last year when they were a significantly better team. Now, caveat to this, if things go south for Florida early, and they could, I don't think they'll have some rebound in them in November again, because I think at that point, they're just going to give up on Billy Napier and realize that's just what they are. And I think once the team gives up, Tennessee has a great chance. So that's why Florida is such a toss-up. But no, I think Georgia's a more likely win than Florida. I actually think Georgia's a more likely win because Tennessee's playing at Florida, and the Florida psychological edge over Tennessee is just insane.
Oh, it is insane. I think the game's not in September. When is the game again?
November. It's a November matchup.
I'm not sure how that affects it one way or another. I think that you probably would rather play them early if it's at home and later when it's away because of the heat. But I hate that game's not in September. But I don't know. I'm just not at all convinced in Billy Napier, and maybe at some point I'll let that go. But I mean, what's the top for him? What's the ceiling? 10 wins, maybe one day. I think it's more like 9, to be quite frankly.
Yeah, but a 9-win Florida team is still more likely to beat Tennessee in the Swamp than anything else. I mean, this Tennessee team, I mean, we're talking about a program that, I mean, they've only beaten one good Florida team in the Swamp the last 60 years, and that was the 2001 team that beat Florida in the Swamp in December. The 2003 win in the Swamp, that was not a good Florida team that year. Remember when Ingle Martin was starting at quarterback that game?
Yep.
And yeah. So,
by the way, for those that don't know, Florida picked up Harrison Bailey so Tennessee could see an old friend. And I'm not sold on DJ Lagway. That's the other factor I'll throw out there. It seems like DJ Lagway is just naturally getting lumped together with the elite quarterbacks in the SEC. And Caleb, I don't see that.
I mean, I don't consider him among the elite quarterbacks, but I think he's good enough with the talent around them to actually win. And Florida showed a lot of talent elsewhere. So when I take that into account, I think DJ Lagway is actually doing I think DJ Lagway can win on that front. And I guess
David says, I think quarterback will be a wash. David, I tend to agree with you.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right, 4th down is Tennessee's entire season will come down to which game?
The one I just talked about, Florida. If they beat Florida, they're in the playoff. If they lose, they're not. I think it's that simple.
They've got to win the rest of their games.
If they lose to Florida?
If they lose, no. If they lose to Georgia and Alabama, they got to beat
Florida.
Beat Florida, Oklahoma. I mean,
yeah. Assuming they win the other 9 games. If they beat Florida, they're in the playoff. Here's why Florida's so crucial. Actually, if they beat Florida, they still may beat Georgia. By the way, that opens up the door for them to be upset somewhere because I think you and I both agree 10-2 is the barometer. That's what you got to hit to get to the playoff, right? 10-2.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can beat Florida, they can either afford to lose to Georgia and Alabama, or steal an upset, most likely Georgia, and suffer an upset somewhere else. But I also think that I also think the upset somewhere else is a lot less likely this year than it was last year. When I look at the schedule, if they get past assuming they get past Syracuse, I think if they beat Syracuse is the 4th toughest team on their schedule by far. I think if they beat Florida, they are almost locked to go 10-2 this year.
Jimmy says if you beat Alabama, it is a good season. That is our rival. Jimmy, I think you're in the minority. I think that people are going to view this nowadays as you could lose to Florida. I mean, you can't lose to Florida, Georgia, and Alabama to make the playoff. But theoretically, if you could lose to your 3 rivals and still make the playoffs, most fans are going to view that as a success. Bottom line is you make the playoffs, it's a success.
Oh, I agree. And as a matter of fact, it's actually kind of a callback to the 90s, but in a different way. With Florida and Alabama, this is not the type of year you want. You hate the year where you have to play both of them on the road and get Georgia at home because Georgia's such a step above everybody talent-wise. You almost feel like you almost worry you're wasting a home game, right?
Yep.